Hello and welcome to Rolled Worlds. I'm Sean Roberts, the writer. So today I'm talking about DM style. I'm talking about all the inner workings of how I like to DM games, and maybe some of the differences between me and others, and how none of that in the end really matters, and that every DM is precious and special, and how we all have our different advantages as DMs. So, when it comes to different aspects of DMing, one of the first things that usually comes up is the term railroading. And that's kind of become just this derogatory term when referring to a DM's choice to put plot over the players at any particular time. Sometimes it can definitely go to the detriment of all the players to the point in which people feel like they don't have any free will inside of the world that they're playing in. And that's kind of the whole reason why they're doing this, that they want to feel like they're part of a world and that they're able to change it. If you make it so then they can't change anything and you make them feel like they're not really part of the world and they're not really having any grand scale effect on the game that they're taking part in, why do they want to play it? So yeah, when you do railroad to the detriment of the players, then that can become really terrible. But there are times in which it's good to steer the players in certain directions. It really depends on the moment that you're in. More often than not, though, I don't do railroading. I don't consider myself a DM that pushes the story upon the players to the point in which they don't really have any choices. And that gets into the second type of DMing from my point of view, because I kind of view it like a spectrum, is the sandbox style of DMing. And sandbox is referring to, it kind of has acquired this very positive note that the more sandbox you are, then the more free the players are, and the more they are able to change the world and everything like that. But if somebody doesn't take any thought into the game that they're going to run, if somebody doesn't prepare anything, then a campaign can end up with a bunch of players who just kind of stand around twiddling their thumbs, wondering when something is going to happen in the world. Because if you truly are just 100% sandbox and you don't prepare anything, players are standing there, nothing happens in that field, the wind blows, and that's it. So, you do need to find a little bit of balance between those two styles of DMing. Um, I do a lot of sandbox style gaming. Um, I still have a very detailed world that I've created in which it allows for me to do a good amount of sandbox and a lot of improv when it comes to the players being able to make whatever choices they want. That changes the outcome of the story. That might even change what the plot even is. It might change the story entirely. I've run lots of games. Almost every game that I've ever run, the ending of the story changed. The importance of a certain villain changed. Um, the plot that they ended up unfolding changed because of such drastic things that they altered, that I felt that a new story was needed in order to um, go along with what the players were up to. So I definitely would consider myself much more of a sandbox DM than a railroad DM. But I've been afforded that opportunity from having a very detailed world that I've created that I can sandbox inside of. So it took a lot of preparation in order for sandboxing to work well. Third concept that I want to talk about is plot versus players. For me, the players are considered much more important than the plot, most of the time, to the point in which, as I said in number two about sandboxing, I've drastically changed the entire story. I've had a villain change. The players never knew these things, but it just turned out that because of drastic things that they did, I had to change drastically as well with it. Because if I had just kept on the same plot that I was already on, then things would have been less dramatic for them. And that's really like part of the importance of the game as the DM, is to create a dramatic, compelling story for the players, and you need to evolve with them. You need to change with them. You need to sometimes throw out a week's worth of information that you've written down just because they made one choice that, broke your story. And so you just write a new one. And that gets into other stuff later that I think is important. Now, when it comes to tools you use as a DM, number 4. For me personally, especially because of us living in a time in which we're not allowed to spend a lot of interactive time with each other on a physical level, I've been using a software called Fantasy Grounds a lot. That one has definitely been a great lifesaver because you still get to click on little dice and drop them, and it's free for the players. I paid for the full shebang, so I'm able to run games with it and everything, and that's great. But yeah, it allows you to do dice rolls without having to type in dice that you want to roll or anything. You can use Fantasy Grounds to really add pictures that the players can interact with, maps and grids and other wonderful things like that normally I probably wouldn't be using a whole lot if I was sitting around with the other players. But in the world that we're in, and we're doing things digitally, it's one more thing that I can do that helps improve the game for the players during this time. I also use Discord. That's usually our chat software that we use while we're playing. Most user friendly, lots of gamers have it, so it just ends up being a very easy thing to use. Music is always very important to me when it comes to my DMing style. I really like having ambiance in the background to help create mood, to help create that dramatic effect, to get people into a certain mindset of a moment that they're in. If I want them to feel a little bit spooked, then I put on some dark horror ambiance. So then that way, as they're trudging their way through a cave, everybody's a little bit on edge. When I want them to know battle is happening, then I put on some epic orchestra music. Or if I'm describing something terrible that's happening to somebody who's about to die, I will usually like to put on some sad music. So the music can really help facilitate the dramatic effect that you wish to have occur. And I also like using art. I'm a big fan of Google and just going into images and finding pieces of art that I can use just as a good bit of inspiration, or just to slap it down in front of the players and play, you see that? So then that way I don't have to go into very long tangents of descriptions, which is a thing that I do a lot, and that's bad. And so something that helps me not have to just blabber on and narrate forever is by having images available to me that I can just, here, this is it. I don't have to talk about it now. You see it. If you have questions, we can go into more detail, but this is it. And D20s. The actual system that I use is called Tanu RPG, and it's a system that I made up, and I think it works very well. It's been changed and evolved over the years, and I think it works really well, and it only uses D20s. Just one D20 per player. It doesn't need anything else. Number 5, number of players. This is a quick section, but this is just me talking about the types of DMs out there and what types of games are the best. And for me, I really like 4. Not 3 to 4, not 4 to 5, but 4 players. 4 players specifically, because if 2 players end up deciding, well, our 2 characters know each other already, you at least still have 2 other players that have the opportunity to learn about each other and get to know each other and form that connection, even if 2 already have done that. Having 4 players also is a good balance, where you have variety in your players and what they're capable of doing, but you also don't increase the amount of time that players wait to do things by too much. It's not terrible. 4 players can wait on each other pretty easily. When you start getting up into 6 or more, that's when you have to start thinking about how often a player is sitting there waiting for their turn to occur. Um, I do enjoy 3 players, but 4 is definitely like that's my number. 2 players and 1 player, very specific types of games that I like for 1 or 2 players. If you have 1 or 2 players, you can have some really amazing role play and really amazing games that occur for those people. But they're less epic in scale. They're much more personal games and smaller scale games from my point of view. And but you can get into some really great detail with those games because those 2 players get all of your attention. That 1 player gets all of your attention. If you've never done a 1 player DM game, then you're missing out. There's definitely something to be had about that. It's a lot of fun if you can find 1 person who really wants to like crack out a really fun game with you, even if it's just a 1 shot. Number 6, types of players I love. Those who take initiative and try things rather than waiting on narration to guide them. Because of my sandbox type of mentality, it's difficult for me to work with players who stand around and twiddle their thumbs waiting for me to tell them what happens to them. I really enjoy it when a player takes the chance, takes an opportunity, tries to push the envelope as to what they're capable of doing in the game. Those who wait their turn. Now that's a really important one. When I really like it when players wait for either an opportunity to present itself that is directed towards them, or when another player tries bringing them into the fold of a certain situation, rather than always trying to interject themselves into other people's situations. Those who ask questions about a character or environment, I always love it if I describe an environment and then say, well, what's in that corner? It now lets me think, oh yeah, what is in that corner? Did I not put anything in that corner? If I did, I get to go into more detail about it. If I didn't put anything in that corner, well, now I can. And because they're asking about it, it helps me create more for the world that the players are playing in when they ask questions about the environment or other characters that they come across or NPCs. Those who wish to describe their own successes and failures when I give them the level in which it happened. So in the Tanu RPG system, there's definitely a certain tier list as to the success or failure of things based on the roll scores. And I really enjoy it when I say, okay, this happened and you failed by this much. And then the player says, okay, then this starts happening to me and and they go through it. I really enjoy it when a player enjoys their successes and their failures equally and want to roleplay those out and to be the one who tells what happens with their character. Those who take notes. Now, the note taker can sometimes be viewed by certain DMs as kind of like a rules lawyer or a person who wants to impose their will onto others. But for me, I love the note taker because if it's something that I said, then yeah, that should be taken into account. If I said that the troll was coming from the left and then I say, and then the players say we run down the right tunnel, and then I say you can't because the troll is blocking your path, and then the other player says, wait, but you said it was in the left tunnel. And then I have to go, oh yeah, yep, you're right. Then yeah, you're able to run away. Roll to run away. I really like it because it also helps me remember the names of NPCs that I come across or other things like that. Or if we need a rundown of the game, a player who's a note taker might mention something that I go, like it's the start of the game and I'm trying to prepare, like taking a second to think about what's going to happen next. And then the note taker says, well, we did this, and this happened. And I go, oh yeah, that's exactly where I wanted this story to go tonight. And so note taker is always loved. And those who metagame to not metagame. And what that means is that somebody who says, like, oh, we're fighting a troll. Well, normally I would know that a troll is immune, takes fire damage and can't regenerate when it has fire damage. So I'm gonna shoot ice at it. Why? Well, because like we're in a desert, so I think maybe ice will hurt it. I love that. I love it when people metagame to not metagame. When they try to think of what would make sense for their character to do over what makes sense for the player to do. That's always really appreciated and usually gets rewarded in some way through the story. Number 7, when it comes to players, I hate. Now, hate is a strong word. I don't hate any of these players. I don't despise them or anything like that. But these are all traits of players that usually create conflict within the game, but not on a good level that happens inside the game, but on a bad level that happens outside of the game. So, a player who speaks over or cuts off another player. Now, there's a difference between a character speaking over another character versus a player speaking over another player. A player might create a character who does interject themselves into other people's conversations, who does like to cut other characters off. But the player might not be somebody who does that, though. They might be still respectful of somebody who is playing the game and try to think of when they can use their character in a respectful way as a player, but still be able to be the disrespectful character in game. It's a tough balance to find, but I love it when a player does that. But a player who speaks over or cuts off another player is never fun. Like when I even ask a player, "What are you doing?" and then the other player says, "Well, I do this," and like I understand that you want to do something right now, but I just asked this player what they want to do, and so it stinks when you're a player and it's your turn and you think you're gonna do something and it's your moment to do something cool, and then another player jumps in and kind of wrecks whatever it is that the DM kind of thought up for that player. Those who disagree with everything the group wants to do. Now, this one's another balancing game because every once in a while you want to create a character that is dynamic and really well developed, and maybe it's a survivalist who doesn't really think that they want to go jumping into every situation and die. So they like the group says, "Let's go down the tunnel," and you think the tunnel is bad because the tunnel's going to kill you. Yeah, that would be something to argue about. But there are times in which you need to accept that the group is doing something. The group is going somewhere. The group wants to travel, to adventure, to explore. And if your character is sitting there not wishing to explore, not wishing to adventure, not wishing to take any chances, what are you even doing in the game? You're playing a D&D game with a group of people where it's called Dungeons and Dragons or whatever other game you're doing, and it's about exploring and traveling and experiencing things. And if your character's just, I don't want to experience that, I don't want to experience that, I'm not going to take that chance, I'm not going to take that risk, and I'm going to argue with everybody about it until we don't do it. And then now what do we do? What's the point? Like, why are we playing this game? So, and that's like my second point there, is that those who make a non-adventuring character in an adventuring game. So don't do that. Those who metagame to improve their character situation over others. See, then this one kind of is the opposite of those who metagame to not metagame. If I say to somebody, "Hey, you're in a room and you're searching, and then Joe, you find this magic dagger, and it gives a +2 to sneak," but then the other person says, "Oh, I go over and I look in that same area and I see that Joe has the dagger," and then I say to him, "Hey, I should get that dagger since I'm the rogue." Well, logically and on a metagame level and mechanically, yeah, that makes total sense. But roleplay wise, story wise, why did you just go in that corner? What makes you so sure that you saw that dagger that Joe just found? Like, there's no excuse for those types of situations besides you metagamed that moment because you wanted something, because you were trying to improve your character's situation over another character, or even really over another player. And that's really the rub, is not characters doing things to characters, but a player doing things to players. So, moving on, number 8, role play. Voices, physical acting, role play over mechanics. Um, I'm a big fan of role play over mechanics. If a situation calls for it, and I think the dramatic effect of the story would be better suited to a role play situation rather than a mechanical one. Instead of somebody rolling for something all the time, just saying, well, what does your character actually do? Then me as the DM will role play out whether it actually is effective or not, whether it works. Um, it doesn't always need a roll in order for the story to occur. And that's something that I always try to work on, because sometimes you can get bogged down and say, roll for this, roll for that. Okay, you're going to climb up the ladder, roll for it. You're going to get to the top of the ladder, roll to climb over the railing that is at the top of the ladder. Okay, you're at the top of the ladder, you've gone over the railing. Now roll to open the door. Roll to take your next step. Like, you can get bogged down in those, and so it's good every once in a while to just let the role play occur rather than the roles. Um, when it comes to physical acting, I have a lot of experience in theater, and so doing physical acting is very easy for me. But when it comes to voices, that's something that I'm always going to have to be working on, because I'm not amazing at voices. I don't put a lot of thought into voice acting, so I need to spend more time focusing on that. But there are people out there who are phenomenal at voice acting. Well, like everybody on Critical Role, like of course Matt Mercer would be an example of somebody who's great at voices in his game, and that's something that I need to get better at myself. Um, None of those things are crucial in order to be a fun DM. Role play over mechanics, I would say that's a crucial component, just because you need to not get bogged down in the mechanics. Allow the game to happen, allow the story to unfold. Um, but physical acting, voices, not not crucial. They are not um, more important than the story you're able to tell in order to help the players enjoy their time at the table. Number 9, world building. Detailed bullet points rather than paragraphs and paragraphs of information. That's both for the DM when trying to uh, unravel the world that you're creating that the players are going to play in, and also for background information that the players write. It's always better for the players to give detailed bullet points than paragraphs for the DM to have to read, because sometimes they don't read them. Um, but bullet points are really quick, easy to read, and you can put detail into bullet points to really help flush out what it is that you're making. The maps of the world or cities are things that I really like to create or to have on hand, but I'm not really a battle map person. I'm not a big fan of using a grid battle map. I use them on Fantasy Grounds because I feel like it helps, since we're not together and we can't really, I can't point in directions and try to help describe what it is that they're seeing. So having battle maps is useful when online. But I personally don't. I'm not a huge battle map person because I'm not a big battle gamer when it comes to a role playing game. Um, Battle games are in one category for me, and then role playing games are another category for me. And I don't really feel the need to have a battle map when it's all in my head, anyways. Um, and I've also been playing most of my games in the same world for years, with continuous campaigns and stories that help the world change. And the players have helped change the histories of some of the nations that are in the game, and that's a lot of fun for both me as the DM for when writing all of this stuff and creating it, and also for the players who are getting the opportunity to feel like they've helped shaped the world rather than just witnessed the shaping of the world. And number 10, types of games I run and which ones I like the most. So there's a single city or environment, there's grand epic campaigns, there's god tier campaigns, low level campaigns, battle games, fantasy, sci fi, modern, low versus high magic, and soft versus hard magic. Um, I am a huge fan of almost all of those, except for battle games when it comes to role playing games, and I don't do modern, and I greatly prefer fantasy over sci fi. But single city or environment, I'm in. You can go into a lot of detail, really flush out an environment, have a lot of fun, explaining every little bit of the city to the players, and they really feel like they can um, get into the city that they're walking around in. But grand epic campaigns are also amazing because those are the ones that shape the entire world. You can have some really amazing, larger than life campaigns. A lot more bullet points, a lot more willing to change based on the fly of the players, rather than railroading them, but it can be wonderful. God tier campaigns, those are great. Those are a lot of fun. I much more prefer low level campaigns over god tier campaigns just because there's a lot more risk and players feel like they're having to take a lot more chances at low level. You feel more capable of dying in low level campaigns. And for me, that's a lot more fun than god tier campaigns. Everything seems much more exciting at low level than at god level. But I'm not saying that god tier campaigns are bad. Just not my preference. Like I said, I'm not a fan of battle games, and when it comes to low versus high magic and soft versus hard magic, I have both in my world of Tanu. When you start off in a game, you're pretty much in high magic, hard magic, because everything is quite defined. You have to list off the things you're capable of doing, and everything is finite. And so that kind of creates that hard high hitting magic. And then as the older something gets in magic, the longer it's been around with magic, the softer it becomes, and the and the higher it becomes. Sorry, the first thing I meant was low hard magic because it's low level. It's stuff that doesn't seem as grand of scale. But then as they level up, they become high soft magic because it becomes much more grand. The magic becomes much more epic in scale, much more capable of doing anything, and becomes softer because the rules start to bend more the higher the magic gets and the more powerful it becomes. So those are some things about me as a DM. I've been doing it for years, since I was a sophomore in high school, and I'm now in my 30s. So I've been doing it for quite a while, and I really enjoy it. And if you have any other questions about me as a DM, or about how to get involved in any games that I run, which I do all online right now, then please let me know. I'm always interested in getting new players involved, and the new players that get involved help to financially support the theater that I run, in which LARP and role-playing games take place. So if you're interested, reach out to me, and I could possibly get you fitted into one of the games that I'm already running, or possibly even start up a new game. Thank you. Bye. Please subscribe, like, and comment down below in order to help with, the algorithm and stuff. And comment down below any specific countries, races, gods, or anything that you would like me to do a video on next. Thanks.